I Have a Dream by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Foreword by Coretta Scott King. Paintings by 15 Coretta Scott King Award and Honor Book artists. Foreword by Coretta Scott King. My husband, Martin Luther King Jr., had a great dream for America. He believed that people of all colors and religions could learn how to live together and treat each other like brothers and sisters. In his dream, the people of America would put an end to hatred, injustice, and violence, and in a new spirit of kindness, sharing, and unity would spread across the land. He believed that we could achieve this dream if we could all make a commitment to forgiveness, justice, and love for each other. In this beautiful book, 15 artists have provided their creative illustrations to demonstrate the beauty of this dream and the beliefs that motivated his life and leadership. Their artistry blends beautifully with the inspired message that he shared with millions of Americans at the March on Washington on that magical day of August 28, 1963. His visions of peace and justice and love for everyone still inspire and challenge us to create the beloved community. His legacy of courage, determination, and nonviolence still light the way to the fulfillment of his dream. May God give us the wisdom and strength to carry forward his unfinished work. Coretta Scott King.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom. Five score years ago, great American news of shadow stand today, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash check on the architects of our republic, of the magnificent words of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence. They were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring the sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. We refuse to the rich. We have also come. This is no time to now is the time. Now is the time. I stand here to speak justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time. Make justice a reality for all God's children. It would be fair to overlook this sweltering sun. Our past until 1960. That state. Wait. I will be searching. Who's there? We cannot be satisfied as long as sitting up and nothing for fixed. No, no. I'm not mindful. Some of you have come fresh from the house. Some of you have come from this house. Left you battered by the stars and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been somehow this situation and it's not your so you may fix difficulties. I have a dream. One business will rise up. We're always too I have a dream. And one day, red hills of Georgia. The sons of promise will be able to sit down. Injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My four little children, wondering within a nation, gathered to be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a position in education. I have a dream. This will be let's kind of up that thing. And free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 1929 to 1968. In his landmark speech at the March on Washington, August 28, 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. addressed an interracial crowd of over 250,000 people with these words: "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed, that all men are created equal." And it was this dream that drove Dr. King throughout his life. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, to a family active in the Baptist ministry. King was a gifted student who entered Morehouse College in Atlanta when he was only 15 years old in February 1948, and only 19 years of age, he was ordained to the ministry at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. After receiving his B.A. in sociology from Morehouse in 1948, he earned a Bachelor of Divinity degree at Crozer Theological Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania, where he was valedictorian of his class. At Crozer, King became acquainted with Mohandas Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent protest. King continued his theological studies at Boston University, earning his Ph.D. in 1955. While in Boston, King met Coretta Scott, an Alabama native who was studying at the New England Conservatory of Music. They were married in Marion, Alabama on June 18, 1953. The next decade saw the birth of 4 children and Dr. King's rise to the forefront of the civil rights movement. Dr. King's involvement in the civil rights movement began during his tenure as pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. On December 1st, 1955, a black woman named Rosa Parks refused to surrender her seat on a public city bus to a white passenger and consequently was arrested for violating the city's segregation law. The Montgomery Improvement Association, with Dr. King as its elected leader, organized a boycott of the city's buses. The boycott lasted for over a year and finally ended successfully in the desegregation of Montgomery's public bus system. This victory elevated Dr. King's national visibility introducing him as an eloquent and dynamic leader. On the heels of the success in Montgomery, Dr. King organized the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which he led until his death in 1968. As president of SCLC, Dr. King toured the country and the world meeting with prominent civil rights and religious leaders. In 1960, Dr. King returned to his native Atlanta. During these next years, the height of the civil rights movement, Dr. King had to test his doctrine of nonviolence often, as he was arrested 30 times for his participation in civil rights demonstrations. A protest in Birmingham, Alabama, in the spring of 1963 put Dr. King in prison. There he wrote Letter from Birmingham Jail, which expanded his theory of nonviolence. In August 1963, Dr. King joined other civil rights leaders in organizing the historic March on Washington to demand equal justice for all citizens under the law. And by 1964, the efforts of the civil rights movement culminated in the passage of the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964. In December of 1964, Dr. King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Dr. King traveled to Memphis, Tennessee in 1968 to support a strike by the city's sanitation workers. On April 4th, while standing on the balcony of a motel, Dr. King was shot and killed. The assassin, James Earl Ray, pleaded guilty, but later recanted, and without a jury trial, he was sentenced to 99 years in prison. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy lives on. The books he wrote, the speeches he delivered, the lives he touched, all have empowered us to fulfill his enlightened dream. About the artwork in this book. All of the artists in this book are recipients of the Coretta Scott King Award and or have been named Coretta Scott King Honor Book artists for their work in previously published books. The Coretta Scott King Award is presented annually by the Coretta Scott King Task Force of the American Library Association's Social Responsibility Roundtable. Recipients are African American authors and illustrators whose distinguished books promote an understanding and appreciation of the culture and contribution of all people to the realization of the American dream. The award commemorates the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and honors his widow, Coretta Scott King, for her courage and determination in continuing the work for peace and brotherhood. I Have a Dream, Leo and Diane Dillon. In our painting, the light that Dr. King is approaching represents the dream achieved. He is accompanied by the spirits of equality and justice. To keep the dream from fading, we must always keep moving toward it. The greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Floyd Cooper. In my painting, I use color as a metaphor to convey the feeling of the day. It was a day most often remembered in black and white, due to the confines of the medium of the 1960s that recorded the event. This afforded me great freedom as I set out to capture the emotions of the speech through color. The many different colors represent the many life experiences that come together to make a single powerful statement. Even the Washington Monument seemed to be a fist raised for the cause. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. Jerry Pinkney. In this painting, I have tried to speak to and celebrate the courage and heroism of the children, women, and men who fought against slavery through resistance, even though many were enslaved themselves. The Emancipation Proclamation provided the opportunity for newly freed slaves in the South to take up arms against the forces and institutions that had kept them chained to an unjust and immoral circumstance. Now, black children, women, and men could participate in their own destiny. In Exile in His Own Land, Pat Cummings. Dr. King's words evoke vivid memories of turbulent times. Having lived through those years and having seen firsthand what impact Dr. King had on all of our lives, his words bring only hopeful images to mind. So I choose to portray a contemporary man who walks toward the city with confidence and strength, prepared to collect on what is promised on this shining horizon. The shadow that is cast behind the man, however, is the shadow of his past, the shadow which creates whatever shackles still remain. Even so, he continues to move forward with strength. He never breaks his stride. America has defaulted. Jan Spivey Gilchrist. The symbols I use for America's shame and broken promises, check, dogs, and policemen, are contrasted by a symbol for strength, endurance, and perseverance, the elder, and that of pride, innocence, hope, and the future, the child. The struggle continues, but the hope keeps us strong. The Sunlit Path of Racial Justice, Ashley Bryan. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of freedom, justice, and equality is every human being's right. In my painting, children are playing together, as every living person is either a child or has grown through childhood. I use this theme as a metaphor to celebrate and embrace all people, all ancestries, all creative and caring human endeavors. The Whirlwinds of Revolt, Brian Pinckney. I chose to illustrate the whirlwinds of revolt by using wind in my art to suggest the collective energy of people coming together for a common goal. This energy is forever pushing the nation toward positive change. Meeting physical force with soul force, George Ford. Imagine the courage of the young civil rights volunteers facing the hate-filled mobs who would deny blacks, and any whites with them, the right even to sit and eat at a public lunch counter. Whenever in our struggle for equal justice we feel tempted toward bitterness or hatred, we can gain inspiration and hope by reminding ourselves of the true meaning of Dr. King's words, soul force. Meeting physical force with soul force gives us a weapon that cannot be opposed and provides us with the inner strength to endure any suffering until right is triumphant. Unspeakable Horrors, Tereya Schaefer. This painting depicts the horrors but also the unity that occurred during the Civil Rights Movement. During the movement, many blacks suffered brutal beatings by police, yet these were times of crisis when people, black and white, rallied together, found strength together, and came together as one. In this sense, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream was and is becoming a reality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering, Tom Feelings. Throughout the centuries, Africa's powerful celebratory rites have always acted as a spiritually strong balancing force to counter the painful experience of slavery. Clearly evident in black music, black dance, and the world of athletics. Wherever there is a level playing field, we innovate. We improvise within the restrictive form, then transcend it, raising the level of excellence. In the words of writer Paul Marshall, we are a people who transformed humiliating experiences into creative ones. The Table of Brotherhood, James E. Ransom. Since childhood, the I Have a Dream speech has both motivated and inspired me. Yet, as an adult, I have developed an even deeper appreciation for the lyrical language and vision of hope it provides, in spite of the harsh realities it discusses. This particular portion of the speech has always been one of my favorites because it seems to reflect the pivotal moment where King's dreams for the future are articulated. The idea of former slaves and slave owners coming together for the sole purpose of enjoying each other's company is a tribute to the depth of human spirit and compassion. I Have a Dream Today, Will Clay. My painting illustrates the joy and excitement I often share with children of different backgrounds who perform for me when I visit schools around the country. It is quite an inspiration. The dream lives on today. While there has been much progress towards achieving Dr. King's far-reaching ideals for our nation, our struggle must continue. Each generation to hear Dr. King's hopeful words should be duty-bound to apprise each new generation of its value and importance of our future. and the glory of the Lord will be revealed. Kathleen Atkins Wilson. In his I Have a Dream speech, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. selected the comforting biblical prophecy from Isaiah 44, "And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed," to remind us of his power over all circumstances. I chose to interpret Dr. King's words through a magnificent landscape to symbolize a place where God reveals himself, where peace and freedom and beauty prevail, where our faith is renewed and our hopes and dreams are kept alive. Thank God Almighty we are free at last. Carol Bayard. As I read these words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., somewhere in the middle, my blood is rushing. I am out of my seat. I walk the room, moving my hands, raising my voice, swaying to the rhythm. I see the past. I remember where we came from, who we were, who we came before, how we got here. I remember the loss, the work, the strength, the determination, the work, the building of a nation, the work, the horror, the love, the prayers, the risk, the chances, the getting by, the standing up, the narrow escapes, the bravery, the star, the song, the light of those who paved the way, the light of our future. In my painting is a wall of names, names that came to me as I began to feel my way into the page. They are names of countries, tribes, languages, people, herbs, a heritage of resistance and forging ahead, whatever it took to bring us through.